Good evening, everyone. So happy that you could join us as we go through another week of Overcoming Devastation series. We're almost, I think, close to the end, but we are dealing with our Black Lives Matters. And this week, we are dealing with Black Families Matter. So many detriments in our society and our community as a people. And one of the things that I feel that targets us the most is our Black family unit. Either the lack of, or the lack of conversation, or the lack of educating around it. So today we have two wonderful, wonderful couples that are with us, two of my favorite. We have Billy and Tina Frazier will be joining us, along with Omar and Brittany Joseph. So we're going to have a great time tonight. I can't wait to dialogue with them. So go ahead and share this. Start your watch parties. Make this social media do what it does. As you know, I'm very limited in doing anything but talking. So thank you all for being here. And before we get started, as our usual custom, we're going to have a word of prayer. Dear God, we thank you for another opportunity to come and minister and talk and conversate with your people. We thank you for Black families. We thank you for families all over this world. Tonight, we ask that you would just send your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding upon these two wonderful couples that are with us tonight, that the hearts and the lives of your people will be thoroughly furnished, will be blessed, and will be motivated to have great families and great marriages and just enjoy life as you planned it to be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We're getting ready to get this party started because we only have 1 hour to talk about a whole lot of stuff as it relates to Black families. Families are a part of God's first institution. So before there was a church, there was a family. And I think it is so, so important that we as a people, if we're going to say Black Lives Matters, I really feel that Black lives have to matter also to Black people. And so that there's a lot of things we have to fight against as it relates to Black on Black crime. But as a clinician, I also realize that we also have to fight for our families and have to fight for Black families everywhere. The statistics are startling. I'm sure our guests will get into some of that tonight. But tonight, we just want to delve into something that I don't hear many people talking about, and that's our Black families. So Tina and Billy, they're our licensed clinicians, but more so than that, they are married. So I'm going to let each one of our couples introduce themselves. So we have an older couple, not an old couple. And we also have a millennial couple. Now, you know, and the millennials are special people. So we are so glad that they are with us tonight. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves in their own way and also just give us their personal or brief definition on what they feel family is. So I'm going to ask our Billy and Tina to go first, and then we're going to hear from our millennials.
Okay.
I'm Tina.
I'm Billy.
Frazier. We have been married for August 25th, 2020. We will be married for
36 years.
36 years. And so we are honored to be on here with you guys tonight. Mm-hmm. And so marriage is?
Marriage is a union between a male and a female. Period. The end.
You're gonna get hate mail.
That's okay.
You're gonna get some hate mail coming.
Period. The end.
But it's that intimate complementary connection.
There you go.
In marriage, it is that thing in which it helps us to grow. It helps us to develop our purpose of who we are individually and collectively. So we're Billy and Frazier, Billy and Tina Frazier, and we are excited to be on here with you on today.
Okay, thank you for your personal definition. Okay, the Josephs.
Hi, I'm Brittany,
And I'm Omar.
and we're the Josephs. We have 3 kids, 3 great boys, and we've been married for 5 years. And this is a question we were thinking about. We Googled some definitions, and then we said, no, we're going to come up with our own. And marriage serves to us as it's a commitment and the foundation for which families are built off of. So, I mean, we really couldn't think of much more than that, but we thought about marriage being the commitment between partners, man and woman, and serving as the foundation for building families.
Yes, yes. We agree.
Would you like to add anything to that, Omar?
Oh no, she hit the nail on the head.
It is definitely that
Mm-hmm.
covenant relationship.
Right, right. So let me ask you something before I get into the questions. So how did you know that, Billy, that Tina was the one?
Oh, that's a good question. And I was sharing this with somebody today.
Mhm.
I knew who I was supposed to spend my life with, even though I didn't know, but I knew what God said, and a lot of people say, oh, you're going to put religion into it. But I knew that she was the one, and my purpose in life was going to be fulfilled through her, even though I didn't know what my purpose in life was. But she was the one who understood me, and she was the one my grandmother loved. And anybody my grandmother loves.
That's what you love. How about you, Omar? How did you know that Brittany was the one?
I can say that I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't if she was the one that I loved.
You did
But
not know.
I did know
Okay.
all of my greatest moments came because of the person sitting right next to me. At all my lowest, this person was there. And all my greatest moments, she happened to be there. So I knew that if I wanted to continue with the great moments, then I needed to have this woman by my side.
Awesome.
Oh, cool.
Wow. Wow. Now, I heard that a man knows who he wants to marry by the second date, even if he doesn't marry them 2 years later. By the second date, they know. You agree with that, guys?
Second date?
Just to-
Go ahead, Omar.
Well, we started dating in high school.
Yeah. Although we've been married for 5 years, we've been together for half of those years, or I've known her for half of those years. So,
We've been together since high school, so
a second date,
you're right.
I would say yes, maybe that can be true. Because you know how you feel about a person relatively soon, and you know if that can continue or blossom into something after that. So second date sounds believable.
Okay.
But I don't even remember what our second date was. So
I didn't ask the woman.
For me, I knew it when I kissed her nose for the first time, and then hit me in my face. What? It's the truth.
Who kisses noses?
I had some problems tonight. told you.
What was our first kiss? When I kissed your nose, right?
Absolutely.
There you go. I knew it then.
Omar?
We have known each other. I was 8 years old. That's how long we have known each other. And Billy will be 60 August 8th. And we knew each other. I
Hit
was
my
8.
cash app.
I was 8 and you were how old?
8 and I was 11.
Wow. Wow. That is really something. So, ladies.
So we sung in the choir. We didn't date.
Oh, okay. You weren't dating at 8. Right.
No.
I got it.
But we developed friendship. And that's the key to marriage. That's the key to relationship is friendship prior to anything else. And if you develop a good friendship, that will carry you even in hard times, because what we have to understand, love can wane and wax cold. But when you have that foundation that I want the best for my friend, no matter what is going on in our lives, I want the best for my friend. And so it develops from there.
Do you agree with that, Brittany?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because
Mhm.
as you were mentioning, like those rough times, I'm like, yeah, we're good friends during our rough times, and so I definitely agree.
Wow, that's great. So here's the question. The statistics are startling in New York City as it relates to what we call a structured family, a mom, a dad, and so on. And there are 80% of our households are reportedly headed by female in urban cities like New York. Now, that doesn't mean that a man is not living in the home, but nobody knows that he's there. Like when we were growing up and we wanted to get welfare, they said, you cannot tell that there's a man living in the house if you want to get food stamps. So I don't know if that still goes on today, but what we do know is that on paper, there is a lack of structure, families in the communities. And you all may can look at some of the families that you know, some of the friends that you know, and just, relate to what I'm saying. So what do you feel are the reasons for the breakdown of family structures in the Black community? Anybody can take it away.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brittany.
One of the things that I was thinking about, just from like historical perspective, was like post-slavery, or thinking about how the men have been taken away from their families, and then the woman served as the caregiver for the children, even the slave master's children. I think generation after generation, even though we've come away from, we've been freed, I think the impact of that has followed us for generations and generations. Just seeing it as like the woman is strong enough to head a household. It's just kind of create or set this standard for generations to come, that women feel like they can lead the household when the men aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just one of the biggest things that I could think of, like this generational impact from
slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call it post-traumatic stress, and that things that just linger on afterwards. Yes. Omar, you want to add to that?
As you guys can see, she has a bigger voice than I do in our union. But adding on to what she said, men just aren't there, whether it be them being taken away during slavery time, or black on black crime, which you talked about, and then mass incarceration. Mm-hmm. Men aren't able to be there for their family. Mm-hmm. So those two things piled into post-traumatic, that disorder that we have as a community, are three alarming reasons that Black men aren't there or they aren't listed as being a part of the family.
Right. Thank you so much. Great answers. Frazier.
I feel that in my experiences talking to men who are married or have baby mamas, they don't want to take the responsibility of being in a relationship or a permanent relationship, because they feel that they never saw marriages that have succeeded. They never had marriages in their family that have succeeded. Everybody has been in a divorce situation, and they take that take back mentality. So if it didn't work for them, it's not going to work for me. So they just spread seed, but they don't spread responsibility. So they just go on and on like a bee flower, pollinating any flower that they see, and don't take responsibility for the lives that they leave in the wake.
So I definitely agree. I agree with Omar as well with the mass incarceration. But it's one thing that I see as well is that to take the ownership of leading a family, a lot of times when they're not taught the real essence of what leadership is and the real gift of their seed that they're planting. I think a lot of times man and woman have a relationship and it ends up sexual, and that's what they were doing. They were having sex. So now we bring this child into the equation, and you want me to lead them, and I'm a little confused to where I'm going first. So when they're a little confused to where they're going first, it's very hard for them to look back and say, what am I to pour into this child? What am I to give to this child? What am I to do? And then we, as women, we're saying, I don't need a man. I could do this by myself. And very well, you may can. But the point of the man is for that headship, for that guidance, for that leading, for that information from a whole nother perspective. Because as earlier we were talking, where the men say they think different, they're not emotional, which is true. And most of the time we as women are emotional creatures. So we lack sometimes the ability to make that balance because we move out of our emotions. So yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off, I'm sorry. But also, we was never taught how to be, this wasn't a part of the manhood training, being a father and a husband. I was never taught how to be a husband nor be a father because I was never shown that. So if you get into a relationship where you do procreate, then I don't know how to react because I was never taught how to. All I know is to be a man is to get as many women as I can, and that, hey, you the dude. But to be taught how to be stable and to take care of the things that I have made in the world or take care of the woman that I have made it with, we was never taught that.
Wow. And I've heard that quite often. And can you really be something that you've never seen? So that's why you two couples are on the show tonight. Because even though I don't think either of you were taught how to do this, somehow you managed to figure it out. So with that said, did you have a need or a longing for a structured family? Or you just figured it out on the way? You know, what was your motivation for being a family person? Which leads us to basically my next question, guys. Like, why are so many brothers running from the commitment of marriage and family? And that's to the husbands. Why are so many brothers?
Omar?
I heard you when you said we weren't taught. I heard you when you said there's like mass incarceration, there's a lot of deaths as well. Brothers are just not present. But I think that the two of you had fathers from what I know of your lives. But why do you think, fellas, that so many brothers are running from this commitment of what is called marriage and family?
I feel that with the brothers I talk to, most of them do not want to commit to a long-time relationship because they say they have options. And the options are, I don't know if this is the one, because if I turn around on the next corner and see somebody else that catches my eye, I want that also. It's almost like a kid in a candy store. I don't want Jawbreakers today, but I want Bubble Yum. And I don't want Bubble Yum on Wednesday, so I want Blow Pops. So it's like I can have one of those and I can have one of those, and then let's see which one is better. Not as being a person that you're going to take the whole physical or the whole essence of the woman. You just want parts of her physical, maybe her mental, maybe her emotional, and then let's see if I can combine all of that into one person, but I haven't found that person yet.
Wow. Come on, Omar. I'm listening.
All right, so I'm gonna give you two answers because this is the one that me and Brittany kind of separated on because, like we said, we speak out of our circumstance or whatever we had to deal with as we grew to be where we are in life at the moment. So, my circumstance shows me, or my situation shows me, that there are a lot of brothers who are there for their families and do want to be married, right? But I know, speaking from experience, marriage as a label as just a label. If you just put a label and it says we are now married, it puts another set of expectations on a brother, a guy, or a male who is now afraid of stepping into that expectation, or is afraid that they might not meet set expectation. A relationship is easier to get out of than a marriage. So having that title, having that now new expectation leads to a lot of males not wanting to be in that union.
So, and what was the second one?
Oh, just that in my circumstances, my situation, I do see a lot of these males. My friends, as examples of being strong fathers and being people who are not afraid to be a part of a union, which makes it easier for me because I have all of these and I see it. Although there are a lot of males who are afraid to step into that expectation.
And Omar, why did you just take that plunge? Is it because you saw friends around you doing it, or did you take the plunge because there was a deeper commitment?
I was actually first in my group of friends, so they seen me do it.
Yeah.
For me, it was something deeper. It was something that I wanted to step into. Wanted to prove to myself and wanted to prove to her that I could be a part of. So yeah, it was something deeper.
Wow, this is great. This is great information.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, of course you would.
I know it's a question for the husbands, but as I think of like the men in my family or the friends that I have, and I think about the ones that are married and the ones that are either engaged or single, and I think about some of the logic and the conversations that we've had. A lot of those men, like Billy was mentioning before, the model that they had or didn't have set the standard for what they wanted or did not want in the future. So I have a lot of friends that their parents' marriages were successful or weren't successful, and they said, okay, well, I'm gonna get married and make sure that I don't do this, or I'm not gonna get married because her parents are married and my parents are married and they're miserable, so I'm gonna commit to like living together, we're gonna have kids, but we're not gonna get married because this is what we don't want.
Wow, that is true. I've heard that too. Tina, would you like to add?
Yeah, because when you are
husbands,
you got them going. When you are living together and cohabitating, you have an exit sign on the door, where marriage, that is not that easy to facilitate that exit, because that commitment is not just in the sight of God, it is a civil commitment as well. So it takes a little longer to get out. And we find we do a lot of counseling pre-marriage, and a lot of them say, oh, I'm gonna live together to see how it is. But I have news for most people. When you live together, you still don't know how it is when it comes to marriage, that commitment, that area in which you said, I do. And what are you saying I do? I do to all your imperfections. I do to all your faults. I do to the things I like and the things I don't like, because I'm willing to work through the process with you. So we think it's easier to live together, and if I don't like it, I gotta exit.
So to piggyback on what you said, society accepts people living together. And the thing about it is that I talked to when I was in college, a lot of the people, the women and the men, they said, okay, we're gonna live together to share the bills. You pay cable, I pay water, you pay rent, I pay food, and it's almost like brother and sister, which get the girlfriend and boyfriend experience, but it's almost like we just living together as one big happy family, just to cohabitate, to survive in New York City. Now, I don't know about anybody anywhere else, but in New York City, where the rents is, stupid sky high, I'd rather just have your participation in your money than have participation in your commitment.
Wow.
And it's so different because ex-slaves, if we go back to slavery, ex-slaves were adamant about being married. That was one of the key foundations to the family was marriage. Marriage was the key foundation, and marriage was very big from 1880 to 1960.
Right.
Marriage was what we did. Marriage was the structure. Marriage was the foundation of the family. Even with all of us living in the same house together, they were in there married and making it work.
Right. And you're so absolutely right about that, Tina. And so, yes, we talk about the post-traumatic stress of being enslaved, because we were never slaves, we were enslaved. But there was that period of time that we were adamant about being married. And what really happened to make us go so left as it relates to building our family? Because we want respect as a people, but we get disrespected when we have all of these single homes where the fathers are absent. So I want to ask the brothers a question that wasn't on our original list is, can a man raise children outside of the home? Can you be a father to your child outside of the home? I'm going to let you take it first, Billy.
Okay. Yes, they can, if and only if, as a quote unquote, baby mama allows it. Because a lot of these instances, and I've counseled so many separated couples where the mother, the wife, the ex-wife have so much, baby mama have so much animosity toward the father that they make it impossible for them to have a relationship with their child because they hold that against them. You don't want to be with me, you're not going to be with your child. And that's destroying us, especially as being a black male. When I'm going to use my example, my mother told me that my father was dead.
Wow.
Till I was age 17, where I went to my uncle's funeral, and then when we on our way home, she tells me, you know, your father was there. Father who?
Wow.
And, you know, we've been lied to, we've been bamboozled to say, okay, your father's no good, your father's this, that, and the other. And that's not the truth because we only hearing one side and we never get to hear the other side of the story because of circumstances. Not saying it's anybody's fault, but circumstances. So if the baby mama allows a relationship with the child and the father, then fine, it can happen. But it depends on the mother.
The primary parent.
The primary parent, yes.
Right.
But it can work.
It can work.
Because we can choose to co-parent, and we're not here to discuss what didn't work with us, because now we move into a whole nother role. Our relationship is no more, but our parentship exists. And that child needs both parents in their life. They need them.
But if you hold animosity toward that person.
Well, you shouldn't have been humping me and left. Sorry, y'all. Sorry. This is how we operate.
We are real here. This is the real show.
Listen. You left. You took my stuff and left.
And well, you know, Brittany and Omar, would you like to share on that? Being able to raise kids. You're all going to stay married forever like Billy and Tina. But, you know, is it impossible to raise kids outside of the home? And even as young millennial married couples, do you feel that sometimes individuals use their children to get back at the other person? Brittany and Omar.
Yes, that can be true. I feel like at sometimes it does dwindle down to whether or not we work or how you might be feeling at that particular moment about that relationship, whether or not the kids benefit from that. But as far as like co-parenting and being able to, a male being able to be there for their child
and be outside the home.
It's definitely possible, or yeah, to happen.
And so I hear that you guys are saying that, and I hope that there's some male out there listening, because one of the things that I think is helpful if you are a parent that is outside of the home, you are not the custodial parent, is that you build that kind of relationship and synergy with that mother so that you can participate. You know what that girl likes to make her act right. So you have to figure out some act right activities or something that's gonna get her to act right, you know, so that you can be in the kid's life. And sometimes if they just want you, nothing you do, none of your act rights may make it because they just want you. But it's definitely a problem in our community, Billy, when our children have to be in grown folks' situations. Because I try to tell parents often, let the child build a relationship with the father, let the child build a relationship with the mother, but because you see that grown up as a certain way, you don't see them different as a parent. Because they may be one way with you as an adult and your personalities clash, but that parent can be somebody very, very different with that particular child. So I think that is one of the downfalls in our community. I hear Billy saying, it's the women. I don't know if all the women will agree with Billy, Tina, but
they will not. They will not.
But in my travels, in my circumstances, in my counseling, unfortunately, it is. And that's the sad part.
But it's your perception. Sometimes it's the perception of the man, and opposed to you coming and saying, let's reason it out. And sometimes there are some things that happen that male need to come and take ownership of what he did wrong. And when you take that ownership of what you've done wrong and come reason together, it makes a woman a little more pliable. It makes her a little more open to say, let's work it out for the child. So a lot of times there are games being played and at the risk of the child. That's the part that I'm trying to make.
I
know you pro man. I love marriage. I love you, Billy. I love you.
But I'm trying to say, and it could be right. It could be right because some of the people that I've conversated with, their pride gets in the way. And their pride gets in the way,
and
saying,
their ego.
The pride and the ego and the machismo and all the rest of that stuff. I don't feel like I should cower down to say I'm sorry when I don't feel it's my fault. Because if you do X, you try to get me arrested because I was late on child support, or you don't feel I should.
But it's not her, it's the system. That's okay. The system.
Yeah, but y'all know how to use the system to put it in place. That's the wrong thing. You can't use the system to demonize me when I'm trying to do right.
Yeah.
What you want to say, Brittany?
I'm
sorry, right? Because we going on. Come on, Brittany. Come on, Omar.
I'm just listening to this discussion about the system and like whose role it is, in that discussion, and I'm thinking about, okay, but what the system wouldn't even have any involvement if the man, let's say, or the woman, it depends on, that family, was proactive about maintaining that relationship with the child. Because a lot of times I'm speaking from the experiences of people that I've heard, they don't go for child support. They don't get the system involved until they see that other parent, whether it be the mother or the father, has not made any attempt to help support them financially, is not there emotionally. And there's instances where I've had conversations with friends where they would say, it's not even about the money. I wouldn't even get the system involved if he was trying to maintain a relationship. He didn't have a job or whatever the situation may have been. He was coming to get his child or develop a relationship with him or her. I wouldn't even get the system involved. So that's just the perspective that I was coming from as I heard, you talk,
back and forth.
You know how to use the system.
And we could go on all night about this. Because Billy, I told him, whatever you're going to give it to me and don't let me have to look for it. And he said, if you want my money, take me to court. I want a record.
There you go.
So I take you to court and I get a record, but the courts are going to give me more than what you were going to. And now, oh, no, take me out to court. So,
Yeah, I see most of the women here nodding their head. Yeah,
right.
the ones I'm talking about.
Case is weighed on its own and it's on its own merit. But that's why they said mama's baby, daddy's maybe, because at the end of the day, the woman gets holding the ref. And I'm looking at some of the comments in the chat, and the one thing that we have to realize is that children love both parents. However, they will pick a side if they feel that one of them is being, mistreated more than the other. And they may not know all the ins and the outs, but you will force a child to pick a side when you put them in grown folks' business. So even though somebody may be outside of the home, the way those two individuals interact is going to teach them, how to deal with problems socially. So one of the things that marriage counselors will tell you is to put your marriage first. Put your marriage over everything else, because especially when you have children, because everything you do is teaching your child how to solve problems. When something you disagree with, how do we work it out? So if you put your marriage first in the interest of the marriage, because as Black people, we put our kids first, the mothers do for the most part. What? The marriage, right? So, but if you put the marriage first, because you're teaching that kid how to deal and witness both sexes figuring out life. How do we figure out life when things don't go our way? And that's based on how parents treat each other, whether they're in the home or out of the home. How you treat will teach the child how to navigate through situations in life. So, and then the child will pick up anger and take it to school and wherever, and they're acting out something that wasn't even their problem. They're acting out grown folk problem when they get to school. Why are you so angry? Because mommy and daddy was angry. They was going after each other. So I think that's big. So we got a lot of questions going in the chat. So let me try to move through some of our major questions here. So wives, do you feel that your roles are, what do you feel are your roles for maintaining a good family structure? I'm going to let you go, Brittany.
Could you repeat the question? I was kind of distracted by the comment, question.
Oh, okay. What do you feel is your role for maintaining a good family structure? Like the Bible says, a wise woman buildeth her house.
One thing that I've been thinking about lately, considering everything that's going on, we have the expectation for men to lead our household, and I think as a Black woman, as a wife, I think it's important for us to understand or to try to stay in tune with the Black man's struggle, what he's going through or what he's dealing with in modern day society. Because if I can be in tune with what you're dealing with, we can get through things together. The family structure can be maintained. But if I don't know, then I feel like that's where struggle comes into play. So one of the biggest things for me is now understanding what he's dealing with as a man.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. And I think that is very, very apropos, right? To understand what another person is dealing with and stop just living off of our own feelings and try to put ourselves in their shoes and be a little more empathetic. Tina.
I believe to have open and honest communication, to come alongside of him, to support, and most of all, to create the family structure takes us to really talk, not just talk from the perspective of waiting for my turn, but talk from the perspective of I'm listening and I want to hear you and I want to hear your thoughts and I want to hear where you're going and I'm open to partner with you. And it's so important that we see each other as a complement and not in competition. I am a Black woman, and yes, I may be very strong, I may be very professional, but I'm not in any ways in a struggle, a power struggle, to be in competition with him. My goal is to support my Black brother, to be alongside, to be his strength, to most of all, to know that his house is his safe haven, and that when he comes home to a place that he can be authentically who he is. And it's to get to know him. The greatest thing that anyone could do in their marriage is to be a student of their husband, to be a student of their wife. And when you be a student, it means you take the time and the intent to learn him, to understand him, to watch his behaviors, to know what that means, to know when he had a hard day. And a lot of times when we come home, we go straight into mode of either taking care of the kids, fixing dinner, but we have to carve out time where we go, how was your day? We have to be able to talk to each other throughout the day, texting, checking on each other, and having that intentional dialogue. Not only when something's wrong, intentional dialogue.
So this is so wonderful. I am enjoying like all of the answers that we are getting, and this conversation is real from the older to the younger, and it's still the same at 30 years in, 5 years in. The techniques are really, really just the same. I want to just interject this one little thing, is that I think one of the mistakes that we make as a people is that dating and marriage is two different things. So I heard you guys talk about it, because I know people that dated for 10 years and stayed married for 2. They lived in the house together. They shacked up, right, for 10 years. And when they got married, they stayed for 2. And I think, Omar, you said that. You said, when you put that title of marriage on it, everything changes. So you're right. So living together, like Tina said, no need to do that. Because once it gets to marriage, it becomes something else. And the other thing is that dating people, and the list for dating people shouldn't look like the list for married people. When I'm doing workshops, I say, what do married people do? And they say, have sex, fight, buy houses, buy cars, raise children. And I say, okay, what do dating people do? Have sex, fight, buy cars, get houses. And I said, herein lies the problem, that these two things should not look the same. And Tina, you mentioned the highest order of relationship is friendship. Infidelity is not always about sex. Sometimes it's about, this person is my friend. I'm going to go, and friends like to do things together, be with each other, hang with each other. And if they come home and they're always being beat down on all the time, then we're going to find somebody that makes us feel good. And that's male or female. So this conversation is so apropos. And I think that I'm taking a lot away, and I'm hoping that the people that are listening understand that there is a need to do this thing right. One of the reasons that, other marriages were legalized was because people were living together, and if somebody died, a family member could just walk in and take everything. So when we legalized same-sex marriages, it was so that these people that have shared their lives together for so long, the family members couldn't walk in and just snatch everything away. And I've been in plenty of situations where a man was married but had a girlfriend for 30 years that he lived with and never got a divorce. And when he died, the lady he ain't seen in 30 years showed back up, Brittany, and snatched everything that this lady had acquired with this man in those past 30 years. So marriage is wait, and then I see Black men die, right? They got babies, and they something happens, their lives are terminated, and the poor mother that's raising the kid can't even get his Social Security because there is no legal document. You were just somebody he lived with. So that's why I think this conversation is important. But as it relates to you guys raising children, because one of the reasons that you're married also is that you want to procreate and raise successful children. So talk to me a little bit about being a Black parent, and why is this so special for you and for the two of you to be in the house together as you raise your children. I know I'm just throwing it at you, but I'm gonna let Billy and Tina go first and give my millennials a few minutes to think about it.
Why so successful? Well, first of all, when it came to Billy and I having children, BJ was planned. We've been married almost 6 years.
Well, we was planning to have a child, but it wasn't happening.
Right.
So-
But it wasn't that where you just laid down and oops, I didn't. I had a hard time getting pregnant. So it was really, really different from me. And what we talked about really was having a child was so important because I wanted a part of you and a part of me mixed together. So it was that kind of dialogue we was having. He was going with me to doctor's appointments and taking my temperature. We made it a game. It became a game so that it wouldn't become so stressful when you're dealing with infertility. It could become a battle in your marriage. And we didn't want that to happen to us. So in turn, we made it a game. We made it an exercise. We talked through the whole process of, okay, you gotta take your temperature before my feet hit the floor. My temperature high, get back in this bed, Billy, let's go. So we had to do things of that nature. So it was really important for us to be together and to raise our children. First of all, to know who God was, that this is a God-fearing house. We go to worship, we pray together. We had Monday night Bible study with our children. So we were doing things at home in the household to not just show we're one way at church and another way at home. This is who we are. This is what we're governed by. These are our core values as a family. And we were really, really instrumental in talking through it and really talking it out. When Billy and I got married, we got married young. We were young. We had no clue to what marriage and family really meant. My family dynamics was different. And that's the most important thing, is to really understand the dynamics of the family that we're each bringing into family. How do we now create our own? I came from a single household. He came from a household with a stepfather and a mother
and a grandmother.
So the dynamics were
Dead father. That was living.
father. So we really realized that God, when it came to marriage, right? We are the only ones in covenant. We are the only ones that said, till death do us part. We do not have covenant with our children. They are a gift to us. And according to scripture, we are to shoot them like arrows into the world to make them productive people. And in order to do that, we had to keep showing them who we are, the importance of work, the importance of communication. We come together and have family dinner. We come together at holiday and we play games our children are grown. But you're coming back home on holiday because we're playing Monopoly and we talking smack to each other, because this is what we do when we come together as a family. So we really do believe, we don't just teach it, but we believe that the only covenant is between Billy and I, but our job and our responsibility is to shoot our gifts into the world for them to be productive.
Wow.
Did I answer?
Often time. So Omar and Brittany, they have three beautiful boys. Tell me what it's like being married and parenting, and what's the goals here? Talk to us.
Rough. No, I'm just kidding. It can be rough, but one thing I will say is he's always been the greatest parenting partner, like always. We had Ethan young. We were 20 and we didn't live together. We weren't married at the time. Mm-hmm. And we talked about how important it was for us to get married, for us to be in the same household, because we've had the experience with both. We've had the experience of parenting in two separate households, as involved as Omar was. That just not being able to physically be in the same space what all the time wasn't what we wanted. And so we worked towards getting to a place where we were married and living in the same household. But we've had the opportunity to experience that, not co-parenting because we were in a relationship, but living in separate households, and it just not being the same, no matter how involved you are, dropping off to school in the morning and making every doctor's appointment, him being able to see us interact, us function as a couple, it just wasn't the same as when we married and moved into the same space. But now we have 3 boys, and I'm always like, God, really? 3 boys? All boys. Not one time, did we get the girl. And I think about, why God gave us 3 boys. And I find peace in just seeing him interact with them on a day-to-day. Like, God knew we needed more good men. And he is a model for what that should look like. And so he gave me 3 boys because he knew he was giving them to us. And Omar would be setting the standard for what a Black man should look like.
Woo-hoo, Omar.
Yeah, as you guys know, she has a bigger voice than I do. Yes, speaking of boys, so honestly, he didn't give us boys. He gave me boys. One, because I grew up in a household full of women, a single mother. And I knew that in order to be a dad, or to be a great dad, I had to be everything. Even though I didn't know my father's side of the story, I had to be everything that he was not to me and my sister. So that, honestly, circumstance again, fueled me to be what I am to those boys. So as much as they have hers, they're my boys, and we make a perfect team because she is. I find myself at times being too lenient on them because I want the best for them. She is that blend or mesh that we need to have in order to raise those boys the way they're supposed to be raised.
Well, men are play partners. Men are usually the play partners with the children. That's like just the natural thing. And the woman is always doing what she does, trying to keep order in the house. But, and I always tell women sometimes, you need to switch roles sometimes. You need to play sometimes too. But we too busy, controlling things. So I'm just really so very proud of both of these couples, and mainly because Omar and Billy did not have that structure environment themselves, but yet they somehow figured out a way that this was very important and needed. So that's why we have to put something in place where we can start teaching our young men. And Omar, would you say, you're an educator yourself, your wife is an educator, that we need to start this thing as early as possible as it relates to family and teaching family. When I in a school with a lot of elementary school kids, and they said your teacher may give an assignment not knowing that some kids may not have a father, and then they have to figure out how to the kid has to figure out how to do the assignment without that particular adult being in their life. And then kids usually go home to their moms and say, when am I going to have a daddy? I need a daddy, that kind of thing. So, and it's so hurtful sometimes. However, the two of you have kind of figured out, without having role models, that it is important to have a strong family structure. So I don't know if you guys need to put that in a book or workbook. I'm not going to ask you to answer it tonight, but it is extremely important that we throw out all these excuses for our family being in total disarray. No more excuses, because
Can I make one more comment?
Sure, Billy. It's the Billy Show.
No, it's not. When I told you about my mother saying that my father was dead, and then at the funeral she said he was alive and he was at the funeral. When I met my father in my adult life, I was 17 years old, going into 18, and I spent 5 years working for him. He had a hardware store up in Harlem, and I worked in that store for 5 years to get to know him.
Mhm.
That's where I met all my other siblings, because he was really a Rolling Stone. He rolled a lot. And I found out in that 5 years of studying who he was that I was exactly like him. My DNA came from him. There was no denying. Our personalities were the same. Our mannerisms were the same. The thing about it is that I learned I did not want to be like him.
Mhm.
The main thing I got out of my relationship with him, I did not want to grow into a man and be like my father. Being that example, the wrong example, made me the man that I am, trying to be the right one in a relationship and of being a father.
Wow. So what do you say to these men? Because I've met young men who say, I'm never going to be like my father. And they end up being just like him, or sometimes worse, And like you said, that DNA. So some people are asking for a part 2. I can't get to the rest of the questions because I got to get to the questions in the chat. So I think we're going to have to continue this conversation next week and include single parenting, which I am one or was one. And now I'm raising grown folks, trying to figure out how to do that. But anyway, so it's important that we tackle some of these questions and how the DNA weighs so powerful. I was working in family court. And when I was working in family court, I had to do assessments on children to give to the probation officer who was going to go before the judge with this investigation. So Frazier, Joseph, the boy told me, put your pen down. I know what's wrong with me. And I said, okay, what's wrong with you, boy? I say that dearly. And he said, my mother doesn't love me. And I said, in my young age, all mothers love their kids. Mom, could you tell his son that you love him so we can get on with the conversation? And the mother could not tell the son that she loved him. So I put the kid out, to your point, Billy, and I asked the mom, I said, we're in court. You're getting to go before a judge. You couldn't tell your son you love him? I said, I'm from down south. I know sometimes people don't tell their children they love them, but, in a crunch, they can squeeze it out. And she said, I don't love him. Why did she say that, Billy? She said, because he reminds me of his father. He walks like him. He talks like him. Everything about him reminds me. And the father wasn't nice to her, and the father used to beat her. And the truth of the matter is she was treating him unfairly because of his looks and because of her relationship with his father. Because of his relationship with the father. So what do you say to that, Tina? What do you say to that? When there's the mom is saying, I can't get with this kid because he reminds me of his father.
And that's real. That's real. But the thing that I try to help a mom work through is to see the other parts, because just as much as he is like his father, he may look like his father, there is parts of your DNA, and we have to take the time to search it out. We have to take the time to find what parts are yours and that you can complement and that you can find pleasure in and that you can develop the love. It's a hard place to be, but it's a real place. And so my thing to her is, at what stage are you willing to forgive that man so that you could save your child?
But again, and when you talked about that, the mother not saying, I love you, mine didn't say that to me until her deathbed. So I understand it, and I can commiserate with that child's feelings because I've been there. Nothing worse than you got to go through all your life with not even hearing those words. So how do you teach your children how to say it to somebody else when it was never said to yourself? So is a lot of emotion that's tied up in it. But the thing about it is real. And that's why we grow up just looking for the physical and not the emotional, because we don't know what the emotion, we was never showed the emotion. We suck it up, be a man. Okay, suck what up? That's not the answer to every man's problem or every boy's problem. Suck it up, be a man. No, that's not it. Sorry.
Right. So Omar, do you find it difficult to tell your boys that you love them?
I overuse that word. Honestly, once again, circumstance. I try to be everything my dad wasn't for me. So every chance I get, I tell him I love him. To the point where Brittany wonders if I really even mean the word. Yeah. So love for me isn't too hard to use, and isn't too hard to show to those boys that I love them, so that they go into the world knowing either what loves look like, or are able to say, I love you, and I know why I love you.
It's after 8. Wow, it's after 8, guys. So knowing that your father wasn't there, how is your relationship with him now?
It's decent. Now he tries to be a part of the boys' lives. So
I've heard that.
So if they can't do it their own, they try to sneak in with the grandkids. So it's been getting better because of our love for those boys. So that's pretty much. Yeah.
Right. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna ask a couple of the questions before we leave, and then we're gonna have to take this back up next week if you all can figure out how to hide the kids again. But this is a good question. I'm starting at the bottom because my daughter's on there. Jalea started her 5th day as a doctor. This is her 5th work day, and Janae is finishing up something. So, Brittany, if you can help me look through these questions too. Dr. Young, if you can help me look through these questions real quick. I'm going to go with the one on the bottom. It says, how do you find time alone just for you guys, for you married couples, raising children? How do you find time for you guys? Or do you? That Brittany and...
You want me to speak? Do you want to speak?
Go ahead.
We have to be very creative.
Mm-hmm.
We have to carve it out. We're blessed that we have, my parents are a hop, skip, and a jump away, and that they're so willing to keep the kids, even if it's just for 2 hours at a time, or if we have to divvy them up. Our kids are the grandkids of everybody, so they're the only kids. So people are willing to keep them, but we have to make it our business to carve out time. And even when we don't have that, I'm thinking about this quarantine experience where we couldn't get babysitters because we just couldn't physically leave the house or have anyone coming in and out or bring them to anyone. Just creating movie night in the house or date space, even if it's making sure when they fall asleep, if we get an hour in where they're not there, making sure that there's a time, even if it's the smallest amount of time, that exists where they are not involved, which is hard. We have to make sure that we found that.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. So it's about quality time rather than quantity. So yeah. Dr. Young, you got a question?
Yes. Should you stay in a marriage because of children if you are not in a good marriage?
Tina and Billy, you want to take that?
No, we don't believe in staying in a marriage for children. We believe that you need to work through the issues. The first thing is, have you tried to do all you can for your marriage? Have you got counseling? Have you got a mentor couple? What are the things have you put in place? If you have put those things in place and that still does not work, then you have to work on how are we going to co-parent? What are we going to do? How are the times going? You got to talk this through so that it can be a healthy transition. Will the kids be affected? Absolutely. Will they hurt? Yes, because kids show they hurt in different ways. They will. But do I stay in something that is abusive or something that's not growing or something that's unhealthy? No, because what you're really doing is going to perpetuate a cycle with your children will end up doing the same thing they see you do. If you're fighting and screaming and all of that in front of them, you will ultimately cause a really cycle in your children.
And also, when you have you're in a situation where you're going to separate or divorce, you have to include the children into your next relationship. It's
We
not.
know when they don't need no next relationship. They
Yeah,
gotta get
but-
past this one,
No.
baby.
Some people do go into another relationship.
They should.
And
It's unhealthy.
I didn't say they should, but I'm just saying this happens. And when it does happen, you have to include the children because the children are a part of you. And if the children are a part of you and the other person that you are involved in doesn't want or doesn't like your children, how do you treat the relationship
That's
then?
another topic.
It's another
Dr.
topic, but
Moses,
it's
we
real.
finished.
Right. You're both right. Have you done the work? The question was, should I stay married? Then the answer is, first question, we're going to answer that question with a question. Have you put in the work? Have you sought help? And I mean good help. And let me just say this to all the believers on here. Pastors are not marriage counselors. Pastors know the word of God, but they're not clinical counselors. Please, pastors, don't get mad at me, right? So, because a good counselor knows that we help you through your thought process, the answers are inside of you. It's not about my personal beliefs. So what Tina and Billy are saying is okay to basically seek help. And Billy said, some of you are going to go ahead because you just can't live alone. And you're going to need somebody. You got to think of the children when you move forward in that. So millennials, before we go to the next question, do you feel that people should stay together for the kids' sake? Stay married for the kids' sake?
Nope.
Times two.
What you say, Omar?
I said times two.
Times two? You say no? So you all say put in the work too?
I say put in the work, but if you've tried everything and it fails, you don't stay, because the kids, they feel it, they know, and you can't, if you're in an unhealthy and unhappy space, it affects the way that you parent, and they suffer as a result of it. And so it's not beneficial to put yourself or the child through that.
Wow. So we're going to get into that next week too, a little more, because I can speak to that. Dr. Young, another question?
Well, the rest are comments.
Okay.
The rest are all comments supporting what was said by our speakers.
Okay, great. Would you like to add something, Dr. Young? Tina, I need you to look at the Facebook real quick.
I would like to say that I enjoyed the dialogue this evening. I've been married a long time, so I can relate to most of what was said. And I do think that we need to continue the conversation because this is a powerful topic. And I think we need more time exploring all the facets of marriage among Black families.
And I feel that it should be in our curriculums at school. It should be in our curriculums at church. In those time periods up into the 50s and 60s, early 70s, I mean, we knew to do it. We knew that our children needed a strong family, a structure of a mom and a dad. So now we've broken it down till almost nothing. And we're depending on, we use this village term so loosely. So we're depending on the village to raise our kids because mom and dad can't seem to work together. And those are the people that the children want to be with the most. And that's who they want to hear from the most. And that causes a lot of friction in our families as well, because the parent is, you know, the out-of-home parent, that kid loves that parent just as much as they love the parent that is inside of the home. So those are the kind of things that we have to kind of work through and talk about. So guys, thank you so much. Tina, is that it?
Stop touching, baby. You just have a lot of people just saying, can you please continue a part 2? So it's not questions. I don't see any other questions.
Okay, like Dr. Young said. Okay, great. So we'll see you guys all back next week. Hope you can find a babysitter, Joseph's. And then we're going to add in this whole single parent piece. So for those of you that know single parents, please invite them to be on our segment next Monday at 7 o'clock. Thank you all for coming out. God bless you. Good night. See you next Monday. Thank you, Josephs. Thank you, Fraziers. Love you much. Did an awesome job tonight. Bye-bye, everybody. God bless you and be with you. Stay safe. Wear your mask.